in 2025.
That's
where I'm struggling.
What grade would you give him for the first 2 years, this year obviously included? Before we look forward, I need to know where the jumping off point is for you, because my grade on Sean Payton.
So 2 years as not individual years as a whole.
As combined, because my combined grade for Sean Payton might be, just kind of guessing, like way higher than yours. So where are we starting from here in your eyes?
I mean, I'd still give him a B, like maybe a B plus for over the years. You're going higher. See, I'll probably go, I mean, he's still got pretty good numbers out of Russell Wilson, and he's not any good at football. Yeah, B plus. I can't go higher than B plus because how much he ignored the running game.
I'm going to go a solid A, rock solid A. I'm tempted A plus, but you got me on the ground game. Why are you bringing up facts? We're trying to do sports talk radio. It's supposed to be emotion and opinions, but my emotion and opinion around Sean Payton is he's done a hell of a job in 2 years. So starting from there, what can we work towards moving forward? Well, what have we seen in 2 years? It's not like we've seen zero progress.
No, you're right.
You know, and he had the huevos, the stones, the wheelbarrow to just be like, hey, he got good numbers out of Russell Wilson, but he wasn't the guy. Mm-hmm. And he got a billionaire to say, hey, can you waste the most amount of dead money in NFL history? Because I can't work with this guy. I did it for a year. I can't work with this guy. He made tough decisions, tough calls on Lloyd Cushenberry, who I think they would have kept had they had the money. Mm-hmm. But thanks to Russ, they didn't. I made a tough call on Justin Simmons. Maybe not as much of a tough call on Brandon McManus, Kev's guy. But like Sean Payton came in, made these decisions, crafting this culture in his image. That's why it's a rock solid A for me. Because the culture and being in that locker room, as you and I are, as the most of any show in the Denver airways, like we're in those locker rooms. It's so different than it used to be. It's much more united. It's much more healthy. There's not an awkwardness in the locker room as there was with Russell Wilson. Sean changed all that. So for me, where is he going to go in the future? Can we trust him going forward? Well, he's changed now. He's changed leading up to this. And here's what I think. Here, I'm going to settle you down by hopefully convincing you there's a way to settle Sean down.
Okay. I hope there is.
Because you mentioned it. He gets in his own way sometimes. Mm-hmm. He does. And he'll get in game and he'll just get, run it at the top of a sheet. He won't even read it. He's turned around. It's on the other side, Sean.
Kid can't even read good.
I never learned to read. But with Sean Payton, it's like, okay, does an Ashton Genty, and I'm going to keep banging that drum until they get that guy. Because I feel he would be their best fit. I feel they would really, really want Ashton Genty. That's just me. I'm totally guessing that Ashton Genty is at the top of their list. And when you get a guy like that to settle things down, Sean, you don't have to worry about the ground game not working anymore. We talked yesterday on Orange and Blue Today about the very first play with Javonte. It's like, okay, what's that if it's Ashton Genty?
Oh, I mean, it's still, a 6 or 7 yard run?
Yeah. And if that's a better back, now that's a 25-yard run. So in a way, you're kind of satiating Sean by having a back that's tremendous. I don't want to say Javonte wasn't good, but Javonte wasn't, real good. You know what I mean? Like, we're only going to tell you the truth, and it's not meant to make you feel good. If Sean Payton can get that guy that he can lean on, his Kamara, he did it with Javonte just by default because he couldn't trust Estime, and Jalil's just not built for that sort of role. Right? So for me, and maybe I'm just guessing, but I've seen progress with Sean Payton over 2 years. I'm anticipating that will not stop. I'm anticipating it will only get better because if you run the ball better, now Sean himself has settled down, Bo's going to get better, Sean's going to get more of a fit with Bo and make more things work because that playbook opens up even further. It's not just a Waffle House menu. It can be the flippin' Akashic record if Sean Payton opened that things up all the way if they can run the ball.
And that's the biggest key is if they can run the ball. It's 2 consecutive years now with Sean Payton where they haven't had a 100-yard runner in a game. That's literally difficult to do. That you stumble upon that if you're simply running the ball at NFL rate. Like, I'm not saying over the top running the football. You're not the Baltimore Ravens. You stumble upon rushing for 100 yards in a 2-year span, even if you don't have the best running backs in the room. So to me, that's game planning. That's scheme. That's Sean not putting an emphasis at all in some cases and then not enough in others on running the football. And that's where I'm at with the B+ because I don't have a lot of good feeling that he changes. Now, I saw him use the hell out of an Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. And could Ashton Genty be an Alvin Kamara? Sure. I'm definitely down to have that conversation and lean on you for how high you are on an Ashton Genty. But if that doesn't happen, then what? We're going to go another 17 games without a 100-yard rusher? That would be it's already a major failure on Sean Payton's part that they have not had a 100-yard rusher in his tenure of a Broncos coach. That got into year 3. Dude, I hate to say it, but we didn't have to have the real conversation that Stoke was talking about of giving up play calls. No chance that's happening right now. 0.0% chance that Sean Payton gives up the play call. And you know what? Right now, I don't want him to yet. But we get into week 6, week 7 of next year, and there's not a 100-yard rusher for the Denver Broncos or 2, 3 at that point, then that conversation gets some legs. Then we really have to talk about it. It's Sean's problem at that point.
For me, it would take a postseason collapse. That would be clearly Sean's fault. So regular season, maybe not as much, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Wasn't the Bills game a postseason collapse that was Sean's fault?
Okay, another one.
Okay.
And another one. You keep bringing up these facts. I look at it and I go, all right, I believe that the leading rusher in terms of just one game for the entire season, it was Bo Nix, right? Saints, 75 yards?
75 yards, yeah.
Did a back get over 70? I thought maybe Javonte got.
I think Jaleel had an 88-yard game.
Okay.
Latter part of the season here.
So we're talking about barely, it almost had 100. And you had some pushover games, not just the last week of the season. You had some teams that you could beat up on regularly, and it just didn't seem to happen that way for the Denver Broncos, whether it was Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams. Estime didn't really get as much work as he, possibly could have, but it's a trust tree, a trust factor with Sean Payton, and it was 84 yards against Cleveland that Jaleel McLaughlin had, by the way.
Yeah,
so you had an 84-yard game against Cleveland in a game that was a little tougher than you made it a little tougher, by the way, as well. So, that's just got to change. That's got to change because it will help Sean Payton's play calling. By the way, 88 yards for Javonte against New Orleans. So New Orleans was 75 yards from the quarterback, 88 yards for Javonte. That's pretty good. That's nice, but you can do a little bit more of that. And the Broncos just didn't seem to have the wherewithal to do that because at times they just kind of forgot to run.
Yeah. One of our texters on the RamosLaw.com text line, again, throw your name on here so we can give you a shout out, but it's from the 332. Drafting a running back would be a waste with Payton. He won't utilize a back and won't design good plays and scheme for a running back. If you truly believe that, and look, I'm not going to tell you how you truly feel or not. I'm not you. But if I truly felt that today, I'd be saying you got to fire Sean Payton. If you really felt that way, why would you continue with a guy like Sean Payton? So you're telling me in your mind, texter, even if you do go get Ashton Genty, it'll still look the same. If that's the case, then Sean's not the guy long term. Now, I'm not there. I don't believe that. I do believe it's about the personnel, the talent, or lack thereof. If Javonte Williams, I don't want to be disrespectful to Javonte, the dude's living out a dream. He's worked 1,000,000 times harder than I've ever worked in my life, hence is why I'm sitting here talking about him. But if Javonte Williams was the most trusted running back from Sean Payton, who's a Super Bowl winning coach and knows what he's doing as far as an offensive game planning goes for an NFL game, then that's a big problem because Javonte is not it. Point blank, period.
Yes, and everyone's looking for that Kamara. I'll have a couple of notes for you on Alvin Kamara that I think people need perhaps a history lesson or just, I guess I should say, a refresher. You know how many 1,000-yard seasons Alvin Kamara has on the ground in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 seasons in the NFL, and most of that was Sean Payton. How many 1,000-yard seasons on the ground does he have? Just rushing.
Just rushing?
Yes, just rushing.
4?
0.
0? Wow.
932 was the most in 2020. So it's okay, he needs to find that Kamara, but he's still, and by the way, Kamara during that time had 800 yards receiving, 700 yards receiving, 756 yards receiving. So with 80 catches, 81, 81, 83, then 47, 57,
so
75.
So we talk scrimmage yards over 1,500.
Yeah, so that's what we're really talking about. But 100 yards rushing, it's kind of what they need to be looking for because during that time he's had plenty of 100-yard games, just never over 1,000 in a season. But way over in terms of all-purpose yards, rushing and receiving, and plenty of targets. He came into this league. One, he was a backup at Tennessee behind John Kelly.
Yeah.
It was one of those situations, Sean's talked about it, where he's watching film on John Kelly and he's noticing the backup more. And I love when you get to that, right? When you see other guys that pop on film. Kamara was that guy, had the big playability, obviously the receiving ability. His first season in the league had 101 targets.
Damn.
Yeah. So that's the type of player.
That's the trust I want Sean to have in a running back.
And I want him to have it with a dynamic and explosive player. By the way, Kamara, third-round pick. But again, Genty is going to be a first-rounder, might fall to you at 20, and he's a guy that I would give, let's say, 75, conservatively, 75 targets to. Not 100, but 75 in addition to getting him over 1,000 and let's say just 1,200 yards. So he could have a 1,200-yard season on the ground. He could have 300, 400, 500 yards receiving. There's your 1,500, 1,700 yards. Add in 10 touchdowns combined. That can settle Sean down because it just opens up so much more for Bo Nix, who doesn't have to do everything. It's almost in a way like when Nikola Jokic gets help from Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to do everything. He can be a distributor. Bo Nix should be the distributor. I don't want Bo Nix throwing it 45 times.
Yeah.
I want him throwing it 25 times, handing it off 20 times to somebody like Genty. That's a great combination.
Text here from the 720-280. Again, throw your name on here. We want to give you a shout out. Says, man, JD, I wish you and Cecil were grading my papers in college. How you guys gave Sean anything above a C is beyond me. Can't get a first down, 0 running game, 7 points in a playoff game. Way too generous of a grade. If I was grading your college paper, no matter how much Adidas cologne you sprayed on it, it still smelled like pot, so I gave you an F, no matter what. Look, he is right about those things.
So Sean Payton's been average in his eyes because a C is average.
And I can't
I know
do that.
I was a C student, so
Right.
I'm like, I'm average.
But I can't go average. They just went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's not average.
Yeah.
The playoffs
With a
mean
rookie quarterback.
You're above average.
Yes.
Bo Nix is way above average as far as a rookie quarterback. Texter, to your point about the running game and the 7 points, agreed upon that. But you can't just put that in your microscope and only discuss those things.
Right. And it's not the offensive line problem. It's perhaps the rhythm, which Sean calls it. I'll tell you the truth about that. But to me, it's just you don't have the horses. You don't have the guys. You don't have the running backs that you can trust. Add in Kareem Hunt on this team, who was the Chiefs' backup, who just happened to sign with them. They had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the Deneric Prince, they had Carson Steele, right, was the big preseason. It's Kareem Hunt who led him in rushing, mainly because Pacheco was banged up because he runs with no regard for his body. But you could have taken a street free agent, as the Chiefs did, and got better performance than you did from Javonte, from Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin. Like, it's not a Sean problem. It's a they don't have the horses problem. And once you get the horses and this wild horse offense, if you wanted to, you could take off. And with Bo Nix out there slinging it, he'll only get better. The receivers will only get better. You look at what Sean was able to do without a tight end of note and without really – and this may sound harsh, get as offended as you like, without a running back of note. We bang on Adam Troutman all the time, and Trout's okay, right? He's all right. We don't say that about Javonte. Javonte's all right. Like,
Yeah,
he's not
okay.
great.
Yeah.
He's okay. But so we bang on tight end like, oh, they don't have a tight end of note, and that's being nice. We don't say that about running back. They don't have a back. The Audric Estime fantasy, you must get over. If he does something, great.
Yeah.
But he didn't do anything this year because he couldn't win the opportunity with Javonte Williams in front of him.
It's just very hard to be like, everything. That person's okay. I didn't grow up being like, ooh, when I grow up, I'm going to get married to the most okay woman I've ever seen in my life. Right? You don't talk about okay.
Yeah.
It's the, well, but side of the conversation.
Yeah, and I think when you take the 25,000-foot view, and again, Audric Estime could have 1,000 yards next year, and I would be over the moon. That'd be great. He couldn't beat out Javonte Williams, who is not, not what you needed.
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying to be nice. Just think about that. Think about that. Audric Estime, y'all like Audric Estime. I like Audric Estime. He couldn't beat out Javonte Williams. What?
Yeah.
What's that say about him?
Yeah. Running back, it's a priority, man. They have to find one. Might be the first priority. We're going to get to that coming up. But
It's got to be.
I want to do this same exercise now with Vance Joseph. How much do we trust Vance Joseph? The letter grade game. We can do that as well. Do you trust VJ's defense to be what it was from August through November? Or are we absolutely terrified that it's what it was in December and the game against the Bills. We can erase the Chiefs thing. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's the outlier. So what is it? The first 2 months, first 3 months, or the final month of the season? Who are the Broncos under Vance Joseph?
In your job, no matter what you do, is it what you did 6 months ago? Hey, I made the company such and such dollars, or what you're doing now?
It's what you're doing right now.
We had a great show 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have a great show every day. Mm-hmm. Every day. Or else the people upstairs are going, you know what we could do?
Right.
We might be doing something else there. It's like, I don't want them to do that. In fact, I want us to take over. Yeah. So we're going to have a great show, the best show we possibly can. It's a 4-man show here with Kev running the things, with Spivak setting us up, and you and I talking about stuff, man. You got to be great all the time. The Broncos defense wasn't great. Now, letter grade wise for Vance Joseph, based on what he did early in the season, it's preposterous if I'd be like C or whatever. No, it's B.
They don't win 10 games without what that defense
Right.
was.
Yeah, and so we're respecting what the defense does and who they are. They got a ton of playmakers. They don't have inside linebackers. And I have said on this show, like, I don't want VJ to be the coach that needs everything. I want him the MacGyver smoker where he can take whatever and he can put it together and he can make it work. And he couldn't make it work with those inside linebackers. They got exposed, and once teams figured out, oh, where's 40 at? We're going to run at him. We're going to throw at him. We're going to go at him. Oh, where's our wheel route? We can do that all day long. Nobody can stop it. They can't stop the run. Like, once they figured out that, VJ didn't have an adjustment. And because of that, I'm just going to say B. And the way it's trending, I'm not saying it's time for change, but it's just like, all right, I don't want this team to stay the same. And with Vance Joseph, I don't know what he's got in terms of like the next step, the next punch. What's he got in that bag of tricks?
Yeah.
Why didn't you do that against Buffalo?
Well, the inside linebacker thing. Now, I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth. I feel like I'm gonna here. I agree with you. I don't want, you know what I mean? You don't want the person to be successful or talk about them being successful because everything has worked out. You got everything handed to you, right? It's the rich kid standing on third base going, "Phew, I got this stuff figured out," right? You're like, no, you don't. You had it all handed to you. But with VJ, I can't ignore how bad Justin Strnad was. I can't ignore how many times I saw the back of Cody Barton's jersey chasing a running back down the sideline for a touchdown. And Cody Barton, I actually thought got better in some of those instances, but Justin Strnad didn't. So it sounds like an excuse. I'm going to call it a reason that I'm going to give him. I'm with you, a B. I can't go higher. I can't go lower. I think it's a B for Vance Joseph. Can you upgrade? Maybe, but it's the risk-reward thing for me. Is the reward enough of you change everything? And if it's Jim Leonard, you're not going to change a ton. He'll probably pick up some of the same things that VJ had to do, but you are changing some things. And it's like we said, man, continuity, I want it. It's not broke right now, so why fix it? You can add to it and get better, but I don't believe that it's broken.
I don't either, but I go back. If we're going to talk inside linebacker, why did you let Quan Alexander go? And why couldn't Zach Cunningham get some work? Zach Cunningham's on this team.
I'm with you. I'm down with that.
And he's a veteran inside linebacker. And when it clearly, Vance Joseph said it himself, there's warts in December. It's hard to play defense in December. Everyone knows your warts. It's Justin Strnad. That was your wart. Why couldn't you go, Zach Cunningham, you're up? Why did you let Quan Alexander go, who in 3 games and 2 starts had 8 tackles and a forced fumble? And by the way, he's on the Lions team now.
Wow.
Yeah, Lions probably headed to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Quan Alexander, kind of an important piece as a reserve. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when Detroit came calling, you protected Blake Watson. Somebody came calling for Blake Watson. You said, you're on the active roster. Somebody came calling for Quan Alexander when you knew that Strnad was your weak spot, and you said, it's all right. And I know that's Dan Campbell and, that's your guy or whatever, but like, no, this is your team. Mm-hmm. Would the outcome have been different with Quan Alexander? Probably not. Buffalo's an elite team. Denver is not yet an elite team, but there's just some curious decisions. Why didn't you trade for, a Khalil Herbert when running back wasn't working?
Which costed, what, a 7th round pick?
A 7th round pick. Why didn't you keep Quan Alexander? They're just questions I would want answers to. By the way, George Payton, Sean Payton, and Greg Penner are talking. So we will have some
We'll get to
clips
that,
from
yeah.
them, and we'll react to what they have said. But some curious moves here. So we'll see if the Broncos can get the right help. We like your help on YouTube. So hi, YouTube.
What up,
Like, comment,
YouTubers?
share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Dover and Cecil are here for you.
I'm seeing a bunch of different grades. There's D's on VJ.
Who's giving them a D? Come on, man. Come on.
Here is an A, which we didn't get up
Who's
to.
giving them an A?
But the answer is B.
The answer is B.
It's A minus. They write he's the reason we went to the playoffs. And like we just said, I can't give a lot of pushback to that text. They don't win 10 games without Vance Joseph and his defense this season.
They had 1 million sacks.
Yeah.
Might be wrong on that number, but I think it was 1 million.
Give or take a few, yeah.
It felt like 1 million. It was great. And then it wasn't great. And it stings. It still stings. I'm happier than I was Monday. Monday I was a zombie.
Yeah. Yeah, you were a zombie, actually.
I'm happier today. Yeah, so, we'll see if the Broncos can make the right moves this offseason.
I'm hopeful. They have money. They have draft picks.